This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. Listen, I'm in New York at this particular juncture. I've been all over the country. I'm in New York at this particular moment. And here I am looking at the New York Daily News. And the back pages is Odell Beckham Jr. Odell far from sorry about dog pee stunt. Potty on, says the New York Daily News. Now the Giants need to bench him for at least 1 quarter. Are you kidding me? Have you seen this Giants offense without Odell Beckham Jr.? Have you seen some of the individuals that's playing in the National Football League? I mean, for Christ's sakes, Ezekiel Elliott is still on the field. Is Odell immature? Yes. Was it a stupid thing for him to do? Yes. Should he be called on the carpet for it and publicly vilified? Absolutely. Benching him for a quarter? What's that going to accomplish? You see, when you look at stuff like that and you see headlines like that, you want me to tell you how you can parlay that into issues in regards to these protests that have been taking place? Which, by the way, ain't even about the national anthem. It's about Trump. Let's just call it what it is. You know what it is? It's this insatiable appetite that people have to exercise control. To show that the proverbial or the figurative inmates ain't running the asylum. That's what this is about. What the hell is benching Odell Beckham Jr. for a quarter gonna accomplish? I mean, why don't you just take a ruler and slap him on the head? Don't do that again, Odell. Don't do that. Why don't you just do it? What sense does that make? This brother is a superstar football player. He's one of the best wide receivers in football. When the Giants' offense looked as anemic as it gets for pretty much 3 quarters, who was it that helped them come alive? It would be him. And without him, your offense seems virtually non-existent. And because he was immature, and because he irked ownership, coaches, a few teammates, because he incurred a 15-yard penalty. Excuse me, if penalties are the problem, and that's really what's irked you, how you got Eric Flowers on the field? I mean, the only time he ain't letting his quarterback get sacked is when he's holding somebody. What are you talking about? It's an utterly ridiculous notion. And it's amazing to me how people have this kind of mentality. How people have this going on. It really is. All I'm telling you is that when you listen, for those of you that's going to get upset about this, so be it. Get over it. Rules are different for stars. You're a marginal player that barely contributes to the bottom line success of the team. And that's what you got going for you. That's what you got going for you. That's the way it is. Get over it. Rules are different. Oh, my God, stop the presses. Stop the presses. It's not fair. It's not equitable. Never mind, I always tell y'all fair is a place where they judge pigs. It doesn't exist. Never mind that reality. In the end, we got to get down to that. We got to understand what's going on here. Odell Beckham Jr. clearly is immature for doing that. Clearly. He's wrong. Absolutely. Nobody's trying to absolve him from anything. But when you're a professional, getting paid millions of dollars to play this game, and this dude getting paid a couple of $1 million is underpaid because of his greatness. We got back pages here calling for him to be suspended for a quarter? A quarter? Really? The hell is wrong with y'all? Got people out there agreeing. Yeah, that'll send them a message. Oh, stop. Odell Beckham Jr.'s actions, let me tell you this right now. I think it's somewhat stupid. Of course, it's immature, but it's somewhat stupid because those are the kind of things that could potentially jeopardize your money. Teams that are interested in you. How much of an investment they're willing to make in you. We all know that the Giants right now are petrified of investing long-term in the Odell Beckham Jr. at exorbitant dollars because his behavior seems to be of the ilk that gives the impression that, you know what? The more money he gets, the more empowered he feels, the worse he'll be. That's the impression he seems to give. And that's something to be concerned about. No doubt about it. But let's just pump the brakes just a little bit. Can we, please? Can we do that? Odell Beckham Jr. is a superstar. The Giants ain't got much to cheer about. He's the biggest reason you have something to cheer about. And you better be careful messing with this dude. Because if you do, you'll pay for it. In some capacity. You're the New York Giants. You're in no position to be high and mighty. You're just not. What have you done? You're 0-3. You lost all 3 games. Your offense didn't show up till week 3. And on top of it all, your defense is getting run over. No offensive line to speak of. Suspect running game because of it. A quarterback in Eli Manning who's believed to have lost a step. An underachiever in Brandon Marshall. What you got to cheer about? What you got to cheer for? You better fall back and recognize who this guy is. And stop making a mountain out of a molehill. He is not to be defended, no doubt. The immaturity, stupidity. Got it. But suspending him for a quarter, sitting him down for a quarter, stop. Back pages, dog and pony show, potty on, and all of this other stuff. You know you want to see him on Sunday, though. You know it. 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. The big picture here, again, is that it's about control. And that's how you can relate it to those protests. Because, listen, football players think they can just go out on the field and perform, and that's all they got to do. I do my job. I show up to work. I do my job. What's the problem? But you got guys out there protesting. You got owners wanting to exercise control. You've got the league and those under it holding dominion over the players, wanting to make sure the proverbial inmates ain't controlling the asylum. It all comes together because it's the kind of thing that leads to exacerbation. It's the kind of thing that leads to frustration. It's the kind of thing that leads to protest. Just put the pieces together and pay attention. And in case you still don't understand, I'll explain. I'm just getting started.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio back at you. Right here, like I love to do every weekday over the airways of ESPN Radio, Sirius XM Channel 80. Before I get to the calls, if it didn't make sense to y'all what I was saying about Odell Beckham Jr., and this calling for him to be, sat down for a quarter and all this other nonsense. And how that parlays itself with protests, allow me to explain. I want to reiterate again. Pretending that you're peeing like a dog after scoring a touchdown. It's immature. It's classless. It's wrong. Call them out on it. Fair enough. But when 4 or 5 days later, or 3 days later, you're calling for a guy to be sat down. See, this is where you get excessive. Whether you like it or not, blonde hair, petulant attitude, immature behavior from time to time, he's still a man. He's still a man. And if the guy shows up to work on time, and he shows up ready to produce, and he's a high-end producer, and you are low-end completely without him, and you still are advocating sitting him down just to make a point, what does that say about you? I'm not talking to the Daily News. I'm talking to everybody. You see, it's stuff like that, combined with the power of the commissioner, combined with the power that the NFL exercises because you got hard salary caps and you're able to cut and waive and minimize and restructure contracts and all of this other stuff that makes dudes feel as if they less than what their market value demands. It builds and exacerbates frustration. And when that happens, and you finally get confronted by a righteous cause, now it's time to make more noise. These protests that are going on nationwide, across the National Football League and beyond, y'all really think that's about the national anthem? Y'all really that stupid? Let's start talking real talk. Let's start talk from LA to New York and in between. Let's start talking real. You really think that's about the national anthem? Ladies and gentlemen, that's anti-Trump. That's what that is. And you know why it's anti-Trump? Let me tell you why. Because the NFL owners got a problem with him now. See, when he's talking about how the NFL is going to die, it's going to go to hell if they don't correct this national anthem issue. You know what has happened? The whole issue involving Colin Kaepernick has been hijacked. Colin Kaepernick was once sitting down. A Navy SEAL approached him and talked about how insulting and disrespectful it was to soldiers. It's a bad look. Colin Kaepernick said, I didn't intend to do that. So as a result, they said, we would prefer that if you're going to make a protest, instead of sitting down all nonchalantly, could you take a knee? And that's what Colin Kaepernick did. He modified his stance and took a knee. And when he took that knee, it was due to racial inequality. It was due to racism and prejudice and bigotry. It was due to brutality on the part of some police officers. It was never about the red, white, and blue and what it means to this country. It was about people who are not living up to the ideals that flag represents. So it was never against the flag. It was against people who violated by not honoring what the flag is supposed to be about. Yet you see, led by our president, who's brilliant at creating his own narratives and getting people fixated on that, he's changed the narrative. When he was campaigning against Jeb Bush, he talked about effort. And suddenly, a governor of Florida, clearly competent and qualified for the job, was out before he could pass gas. Why? Because his effort was brought into question. When Marco Rubio sat up there and talked about the size of his hands, and Donald Trump said, we know what he was alluding to. Trust me, that's not a problem. Believe me. He also started calling him Little Marco. And then he was gone. And he took pictures of his wife and juxtaposed that to pictures of Carla Fiorini. And then she was gone. Sat up there and said, Paul Rand, what the hell you even doing up here? You ain't even getting more than 1% of the vote. And then he was gone. The man has created narrative after narrative after narrative. And they've hijacked the issue. And by the way, I'm not insulting him for it. I think it's quite brilliant. Because we all know the incentive behind it, at least to some degree. Yeah, you had 8 owners give you $1 million rather as a campaign contribution, even though some of them donated to Hillary Rodham Clinton's campaign as well. But we also know that historically he's had a problem with the NFL, suing them, doing antitrust lawsuits, and getting the owners for the USFL, former football league in the 80s, in an effort to force the NFL to merge with the USFL. It didn't work. 2014, he's looking to purchase the Buffalo Bills. It didn't work. If this man is going to come after Steph Curry because Steph Curry doesn't want to come to the White House, and he's going to come after the Golden State Warriors because they don't want to come because they don't want to come to the White House, if something that innocuous, that trivial, can spark a response from the President of the United States, how about a few owners he thinks cost him billions? You don't think that would be a source of motivation? And yeah, it might be his goal to get back at them. The flip side to it, however, is that if it's advantageous for you because it also feeds your base and it also echoes the sentiments they already feel or want to feel about this whole national anthem issue, why not do it? Which brings us to the very, very people he's trying to validate and support. Why would they feel this way? You know why they can make it about the national anthem? Because to make it about what Colin Kaepernick really wants to make it about and really meant to make it about is to force yourself to have to look in the mirror and think about your own individual transgressions, your own mentality, your own prejudices, and beyond. And God forbid we do that. God forbid. And then after you do all of that, and you look in the mirror, and you really check yourself, then you have to take into account how, regardless of one's immaturity or one's unwise behavior, this insatiable appetite we have as a society to control, particularly athletes who are making money that most Americans will never make in their lifetime. You don't see how it all correlates? How it all comes together full circle? You don't think that's what's going on here with Odell Beckham Jr.? Because when you have this insatiable appetite to control and dictate, this is just the latest example. Even though the word protest and the very definition of protest is to create discomfort, you actually have people calling up to debate what kind of a protest it should be. Oh, I agree with everything Colin Kaepernick may have said, but that wasn't the forum to do it. That's an inconvenience. What's a protest supposed to be? I may be being a little bit too deep for y'all. Who knows? Hopefully you'll get where I'm coming from. 866-729-ESPN is the number to call up. That's 866-729-3776. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. Back with more in a minute.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
On the line with us right now, NFL analyst for ESPN, my big buddy, the one and only Damien Woody's on the line with us right now. What's going on, big time? How are you, man?
I'm good, my man. How you doing?
Wanted to know your opinion about this. What I did was I looked at this Odell Beckham Jr. situation, and listen, pretending as if you're peeing on an opponent or whatever it is, and the excuse that he rolled out, and in terms of protesting, well, nobody's buying that. And it clearly was immature. It was clearly wrong. No denying that either, Damien. But on the back pages of the New York Daily News, here they are calling for this guy to be sat down for a quarter. A, I don't believe that accomplishes much, but B, and more importantly, I'm saying that in a roundabout way, these are the kind of things that just irritates and elevates the level of ire from players, because it's another form of institutional control that they find offensive to themselves, where every little thing is blown to exorbitant proportions. To that you say what?
I would have to agree with you. I mean, here you are, you have the media trying to dictate the terms to the organization about a player. I think that's just preposterous. We all know that Odell Beckham Jr. he has maturity issues. There's no question about that. What he did was wrong. There's no question about that. The fact that he got penalized 15 yards, that's wrong. But for the media to try to dictate the terms to the team to tell a player that he needs to sit a quarter, who are we to tell the media to how the organization should discipline a player for what happened on the field? That doesn't make any sense at all, and I just think it's ridiculous.
The thing about it that really jumps out of my mind when I think about these protests, and you and I have talked about it ad nauseum on First Take. By the way, great job talking about that subject over the last 2 days with you. The thing about it that really resonates with me is that when I see these guys protesting, to me it stopped being about the flag itself, the issue pertaining to Colin Kaepernick. It's been more about protesting Trump, but it's also been about protesting not just things that are going on in our society, but I think that there's a heightened level of frustration, Damien, that these NFL players have with the NFL because of the level of institutional control that is exercised against them from time to time. To that, you say what?
Man, I can't believe this, man. I'm trying so hard not to agree with you, because I know when I agree, your head gets big, man. Like, I hate that.
Speak up. We can't hear you tell our audience how much you agree with me. Speak into the phone so they can hear you saying that you agree with me. Go ahead.
No, listen. I agree with the point. I think a lot of part of it has to do with, as an NFL player, you look at like the freedoms, like with the guys in the NBA. Think about that, Steve. Like, think how much power the players in the NBA have right now. And it seems like there's just like the owners and the league are backing players when they voice their opinions about certain things. And here it is with the players. They don't have any, they have no opt-out as far as the CBA is concerned. I think they have like another 3 years before this whole the new CBA has to be negotiated. They don't have nearly the power that NBA players have. So yeah, from that standpoint, I can definitely see the frustration from the player perspective. And you're right, this protest has gone from what it originally started with Colin Kaepernick, talking about racial inequality, to now just trying to show the president, because the president called the players the SOB. So again, when is the energy going to be redirected to where it needs to be to push the conversation forward?
Damien Woody right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. Before I get to a couple of the games that have taken place, you've been on the record stating that, where do we go from here? You feel that the whole Colin Kaepernick scenario has been hijacked. Real quickly, what are your thoughts pertaining to that right now? Elaborate on those feelings.
Yeah, I just think, once the president interjected and made this thing about him, then everything got diluted. Even with the NFL owners, everyone they turned the theme of the protest from inequality to criminal justice reform to now unity. They sanitized it. They, gentrified it instead of what it's supposed to be. Everybody made it, they just try to clean it up so maybe it looks a little bit better for the general public. And, I just think it's real unfortunate, but I think the onus needs to go to the players and really get that energy back to where it needs to be, and maybe work with the NFL to have, town halls in respective cities and, to really interact with the public and let the public know where they're coming from. Again, there's nothing wrong with disagreeing, but I think sometimes when you can sit down and you just have these frank conversations with people, maybe people can understand the big picture in this whole thing.
Damien Woody, let's switch to some of the action that took place this weekend. We saw the Giants lose to the Philadelphia Eagles. We saw the Falcons escape against the Detroit Lions. We saw Seattle really struggle at Tennessee. What jumped out in your mind? What did you see? What was the biggest thing that you saw from Week 3 of the NFL season that raised your eyebrows?
Well, I mean, last weekend it was really, we've talked about the flag and everything so much, but there were some really good games last weekend, some really compelling games. There's a couple things. One, Seattle, to me, is in real trouble. They have no identity. The Tennessee Titans just pounded the Seahawks. When do you see teams just really pound that defense in the Legion of Boom? You don't see that. And offensively, they really can't get it going because they can't control the line of scrimmage up front. It's still early, but we're 3 games in, and there's really no sign like this thing is going to change. So that bears watching. The Falcons, they've been kind of winning when they can. They kind of win at the end of the game, which is great because a lot of teams in the Falcons' position, coming off that Super Bowl loss, they would be sleepwalking, and usually they have a hard time the following year. Falcons are 3-0 right now. I would like them to be able to finish games better, but the fact that the Falcons are 3-0 lets you know that they're serious about making another run at the Super Bowl. So to me, those two teams really stood out to me.
Last question: who was the more impressive young quarterback you saw this weekend, Jared Goff or Deshaun Watson?
I want to say Deshaun Watson. Going up to Foxborough, I know the Houston Texans lost. There's no question about that. But anyone who watched that game clearly saw Deshaun Watson get the Patriots defense fits in that game. And the thing that if I'm the Patriots or if I'm teams in the AFC South, the thing I would be scared of, he's only going to get better. He's only going to get better. You combine that with that Houston Texans defense, man, that's going to be a formidable team come November and December if he stays healthy.
Damien Woody, always appreciate you, bro. Take it easy. We'll talk soon, my man.
All right, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
Let's go to Adam in Alabama. You're live with Stephen A. Talk to me, man. How are you?
Hey, man, doing well.
All right.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
I just want to let you know I lost my mom last year as well, so I knew what you were going through. And
Thank you.
thoughts and prayers have been with you since then.
Thoughts and prayers to you, too. Go ahead, buddy.
So I got kind of a two-part question here. First has to do with Odell. Second has to do with just the NFL in general. With regards to Odell, I don't understand. I mean, are people offended by what he did? Are they saying that
they're offended? They just thought it was classless, tasteless, and immature.
I mean, so I get that it's a bad celebration. I get that it's not for how athletic and how creative that dude is, he could have come up with something else other than that. But I mean, to say that he needs to sit for a game, or to say that you're offended, or to say that that he's causing harm to the league. I mean, we've had some pretty intense celebrations in the past. I don't understand how this one's any worse than that.
Yeah, I might be. I listen. You might be right. You might be right. Go ahead. What's your second point?
How I feel. Okay. So then, with regards to the NFL in general, I've been kind of following this. I've never been offended by any of these protests, any of the taking the knee. I don't come from a military family or military background, so I'm not in that community. But it has never offended me at all. My question is, I've always been a results guy, and I definitely think the results of bringing awareness to the situation. I mean, you can't argue with that. That's all people talk about now in sports is what's going on. But my question is, with the people that they're trying to reach, like the message that they want, the people they want to get that message out to, is it doing more in actually enlightening them, or is it doing more in just adding fuel to the fire and making them angry and making them say, "Oh, I don't."
Well, it's a numbers game.
This even less.
It's a numbers game. Some people it's reaching. Some people are harboring that secondary mentality that you just brought up. There's no doubt about that. You're never going to get all the people. Remember, you could run for the presidency of the United States. In the case of Barack Obama, when he ran against John McCain, had 69 million votes. John McCain had 59 million. So you're talking about nearly 60 million people who voted in the opposition. You're never going to please everybody. You're never going to grab anybody. But if you can grab a few folks, if you can grab the many out there that can make a difference, you've done your job. I appreciate the call, Adam. Thank you so much. Let's go to Earl in Jersey. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, Earl?
Hey, what's up, Stephen A?
I'm all right. Go ahead, buddy.
All right, my man. Can you tell me of a time when you think it's been rougher to be an African-American athlete? Because we used to kill them, say, in the last 10 years for not standing or stepping up for issues, and now that they are, they're being killed for doing it.
How are they being killed? How are they being killed? There's plenty of people who support them, and there's plenty of people who don't, which was the same in the past.
Cross racial lines. All the the Caucasians think that we are disrespecting the flag and this and that, and how disrespectful they're being. But it's not. I know it's got spun around. It's not about the flag. We know that. But in white America, they think it is. So now the African-American athlete is being killed for not being patriotic.
Well, what's your definition of killed, bro? That people don't agree with them, and because of it, they're insulting them?
Yeah,
so what?
Man, on my social media page, I got some friends, and you should see what they're saying. And we should fire all of them. And they don't like it. They should leave the country. And there's millions of people who feel exactly the opposite. That's the price of change. You have to, great achievements usually involve great sacrifice, and you're not going to appease everybody, and people are going to disagree with you. And that's the way it goes. I'm on radio every day. I'm on television every day. And I can tell you right now, it's a house divided. People agree with me. People disagree with me. So what? If I stand up for what I believe in and I'm true and authentic to myself, and more importantly, and I think this is a very, very important component that I know that I possess in abundance, that's the issue of fairness, then that's all that matters. See, where we run into problems is when we want to sit up there and talk about fairness, but the second somebody disagrees with us, we don't want to hear what they have to say. The fact of the matter is we should listen to everybody. As long as you're sensible and intelligent and you speak eloquently about what your positions are, there should be no reason for us to be vitriolic or to shut down opposing opinions. That's not what this country's success has been based on. And we have to remember that. I agree with you. Just like what they did in New England. They used the N-word, go home or go back to Africa. I'm saying, so that the American athlete, the black athlete right now, he's in like a real tight situation for taking this knee, though, man.
I don't view the situation being any tighter than it once was. As a matter of fact, I consider these athletes to be in a more privileged position. The athletes back in the day were not making the money that these athletes today are making. And number two, they didn't have the reach because it wasn't the advent of social media hadn't come into play yet. So you literally needed to rely on the media and other people in order to disseminate your message for you. Now you can do it yourself. Why are you worried about talking to a newspaper if you're LeBron James and you got 37 million followers on Twitter alone? Or if you're Kevin Durant, you got 17 million followers on Twitter. What the hell are you worried about talking to the media for if you can go there and put out your own message? That's what they're really doing. And that's what can't be escaped. Hour number 2 up next. Stephen A. Smith Show. Lots more of this to get into. Might even touch on my Yankees. No, I'm going to touch on more NFL. Hour number 2 with Stephen A. Up next.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on Sirius XM Channel 80 and the ESPN app.